believe it. Finally. It's over. What can I say? It's been quite the Herculean trek, but thank the heavens above that we have finally reached the finish line. The end of the fourth phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Seriously, after sitting through the most torturous agony of seeing stuff like She-Hulk twerking, Wanda Maximoff becoming a bloodthirsty narcissist, and Taika Waititi ruining Thor's character while also turning his entire tragedy into a comedic joke, it is quite the glorious moment for yours truly that this phase has finally kicked the bucket. The banal world building and character writing isn't going away anytime soon, so don't expect unicorns and rainbows in Phase 5. But anyway, I digress. One of the most profitable movies of 2018 and even some of the most critically acclaimed films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was Ryan Coogler's superhero film Black Panther. And while the film itself was culturally impactful, quality-wise, it ain't a good movie. Oh sure, I've been quite complimentary to that movie 4 years ago the first time I saw it in my review of the film, and some of my positives still remain the same. However, according to Father Time, some things just don't age well. The story and the world building are full of plot holes that are larger than the crater of the Yucatan Peninsula, the outdated MCU comedy and references, the wonky special effects, and the main villain, Killmonger, that was played excellently by Michael B. Jordan. Not quite the well-written or sympathetic villain that I thought he was. If it weren't for Captain America the Winter Soldier, this would be the most overrated MCU movie to date, in my opinion. But hey, since the first one was such a success, maybe a sequel can possibly fix the mistakes that the original didn't fulfill. And as we sit present in 2022, Marvel Studios has finally put to screen what is considered to be one of the most anticipated sequels of the entire year, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. But this time, it is going to be a sequel without its original main lead. Chadwick Boseman, who we all know played T'Challa, aka the Black Panther, since Captain America Civil War all the way to Avengers Endgame, is no longer with us after his battle with colon cancer. And it's sad how such a dedicated, incredible young talent is now gone from this earth, and we never get to see his greater potential down the road, not just in the MCU, but in Hollywood in general. That being said, I don't think the final product of this sequel would be any better regardless if Chadwick Boseman was still alive today, because Black Panther Wakanda Forever is just not a good movie. Don't get me wrong, compared to the black hole of consistency and innovation that is Phase 4's movies and its Disney Plus shows, Black Panther Wakanda Forever is much better than the majority of the former, but it isn't without its copious problems. In our story, a year has passed since the death and the burial of T'Challa, the first Black Panther that we have seen put to screen. Everything has gone quiet in Wakanda, especially from the mourning Queen Ramonda and her daughter Shuri, who have no idea if there will be another person like him or any other Black Panther that will come and aid their isolated nation again. That is until they are confronted somehow by Namor, the leader of an underwater vibranium-built Aztec civilization known as Talocan. He threatens them to abide by his demand of capturing Riri Williams, an individual who's known for creating a vibranium tracker for scientists, which is an existential threat to their society, or he's gonna wipe out all of Wakanda. So Shuri, along with her allies, are up to the task to protect this super-duper smart science protege from the tribe of Talocan. But will there be a Black Panther to stand for Wakanda once more? If we're going to talk about my criticisms with this movie, let's first start with this one. Since the passing of Chadwick Boseman, the film, instead of recasting T'Challa, tried to handle this predicament in a narrative sense. And how did they do it? Well, you would think that the cause of his death would be something that kind of pertains to his character in a way, like saying sacrificing his life for an ally while facing an otherworldly threat, or dying at the heat of battle. In actuality, the writers wrote in Boseman's real-life situation of him dying from what they call in this movie the illness. They don't even know what he died from or what kind of illness it is, they just call it that. And it is said in the movie that he kept it as a secret from everybody else, and lo and behold, it's in the movie. I don't believe that makes any kind of sense because T'Challa already has the vibranium juice in him, and that gives him increased healing and strength for life, so he should be devoid of any kind of illness whatsoever. I also don't buy the fact that T'Challa would keep this as a secret to everybody else, including his family, which, by the way, Wakanda has some of the greatest advancements in health in all of human history. The only reason why this occurred is because the writers wanted to emotionally manipulate the audience and to also pay tribute to Chadwick Boseman, which is fine if you want to pay tribute to Chadwick, but the entire crux of that emotional payoff and tribute has to work in the script, and it just doesn't here. And now it is time for another class session from Professor Luke Nukem. Hello class, pop quiz. What is one of the most crucial elements to storytelling? If you said subverting expectations, the answer is world building. It hasn't been consistent in the MCU as of late, but what about the stuff that kind of lies in Wakanda Forever? Well, it makes Wakanda as a nation and its characters a bit worse. Here's what we learn about them. They're one of the most advanced societies of our time, yet use spears for combat and use trial by combat to declare a ruler, rather than selecting the smartest or the best suited. They don't want other people crossing their isolated borders, as well as calling white people colonizers, criticizing their history. Yet in the beginning of the first movie, they have conquered the other 5 tribes, and they blocked themselves from the world as an isolated nation. And in other installments, they can just cross whatever borders they want to, because as we learned from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever the Dora Milaje find themselves to be, while also attempting to murder John Walker as Captain America and his partner Lamar. And they don't care about international law, even if what they do is considered a serious criminal offense. An example in this movie is when Shuri and Okoye are out to get Riri Williams. After Riri takes the two to her hideout, it turns out that they are being pursued by the FBI. A firefight and a car chase ensues, and it results in Riri doing something so heinous that it would put her and the rest of her associates into prison indefinitely. But hey, as we learned from Black Widow, you can trap guards with the prisoners via an avalanche and you would not be held accountable for it. After all, you are just the good guys. And guess what? I'll do you one better. You know the ending of the first one where T'Challa at the end of the movie was willing to aid those of the outside world with vibranium resources? Well, in this movie, it is stated that Wakanda is the arbiters of vibranium, which, okay, fine. And the Queen's reasoning for not sharing vibranium to the rest of the outside world who are still suffering from the snap is that she doesn't trust him and that she is concerned of what other countries, such as the US and France, would use it for, such as warfare or stealing it for their own good. Mind you that vibranium is one of the greatest resources, not just for weaponry, but for health and anything that you can possibly imagine. And Wakanda has announced themselves to the rest of the world since Captain America's Civil War, which is like 6 years total, for the Queen to say that they don't trust other continents or other countries because of the potential harm that they could do, especially when some mercenaries try to steal it for themselves, is not much of a justification. Plus, need I remind this woman that because of your stupid as hell trial by combat rules to anoint a king in Wakanda, Killmonger was going to use vibranium weapons to take over the world by force, kill the world leaders, including their offspring. But if we were to dial back the contempt for just a little bit, I'm willing to give this movie its day in court, starting with the acting, as I have been complimentary to it since the last movie. For the majority, the performers do well with whatever material that they're given, and no one does a particularly bad job. As for the minority, we'll touch on them down the road. Leticia Wright holds her own well as Shuri. Winston Duke is having a fun time with this role and having a few chuckle-worthy jokes, as M'Baku, Denai Guerrera, and Lupita Nyong'o do fairly good with their parts. But when it comes to the highlights of the movie, there is no other scene stealer that isn't named Angela Bassett, because her performance in this movie is on fire. Gripes I may have aside, Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda is truly terrific, and she deserves the multitudinous appraisal that she is currently getting right now. Every line she utters, particularly in a scene that involves her in the Wakanda Council Room, is pulled off with such emotional captivity and conviction that anytime she appears on screen, all eyes from the audience will be honed in on her. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if she gets nominated for Best Supporting Actress because, from what I've seen, she deserves a nomination. But for every silver lining, there are the dark clouds. And one of the dark clouds is a brand new character to the MCU, that being Ironheart, aka Riri Williams, who has been around in the comics for all of 6 years. And after seeing what the writers and Dominic Thorne had to bring to the character, she gives out an irritating first impression. Whereas you have accomplished or legitimately good actors such as Angela Bassett or Leticia Wright, who do an exceptional job at making their characters believable through their performance. With Dominique Thorne, it wouldn't surprise me if she appeared on the Disney Channel, because that's what her acting is like. Her flat, annoying, and stereotypical performance of a teenage girl doesn't make her character authentic or likable in the slightest, and she does not have a character aside from the fact that she's the film's central plot device, because let's face it, this entire plot happens because of her existence. And the kicker is that she is better than every other scientific genius across the world. So much so that she can create one Iron Man suit within a week, where Tony Stark had tons of tests and trials just to make sure that his Iron Man suit, or suits, were operational. One of the aspects multiple critics, and even myself back in the day, praised the first Black Panther for was the introduction of Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. And how would Marvel try to one-up or possibly match the quality of the prior villain? Well, by writing in a villain that's much more worse than Killmonger's character, that being Namor. Firstly, the actor playing his character doesn't have the ability to come off as an evil force to be reckoned with through his vanilla performance and line delivery. Secondly, his plan to capture Riri is preposterously idiotic. If his goal is to kidnap and kill her, why instead of having Wakanda do his bidding, can't he and his soldiers just do it themselves? Which, surprise, surprise, is what they end up doing anyway. And if that wasn't enough, as he arrests one of our main heroes in order to negotiate her about killing Riri, he garners the audience's sympathy by establishing his tragic backstory, and how he has helped the civilization advance, and that his people, his good-hearted people, are flourishing and thriving because of him. And at this point, you were probably thinking to yourself, okay, that's fine, but what does this have anything to do with killing a college teenager? And once he doesn't get his way, he and his army can just swim underneath the shield that protects Wakanda from invisibility. Don't ask how, I can't be bothered to explain why they don't have a shield in the water. And commit war crimes and kill innocent civilians who really didn't do anything against him. Gee, I feel so sorry for this guy. And then you at last arrive at the climactic ending sequence. The Aftermath tries to replicate the revenge character arc that inhabited T'Challa in Captain America Civil War, where after his father died, revenge has consumed him to the point of him almost killing a framed Bucky Barnes. In fact, one of his lines is, "Revenge has consumed us all," including the likes of Iron Man and even the main villain Helmut Zemo, whose entire motive rested on revenge against the Avengers. But the execution in this movie ends less like Captain America Civil War and more like The Last of Us 2, which is a really bad thing. Because much like that ending, not only is it incredibly unsatisfying, but it comes out of nowhere and doesn't make any sense in the grand scale of things. There is no reason for this character to not exact revenge on one of the bad guys, or be conflicted with this whole, should I execute with revenge or should I execute with peace? Especially since one of the bad guys is responsible for a devastating tragedy. It feels like Ryan Coogler wanted to take the cheapest way out and implement a theme or a character arc on a character that doesn't need it, rather than just ending it on the way that makes sense. Something I find quite baffling in this movie is how it was edited in certain portions of the movie, especially during the unsuspenseful action scenes. And I do mean unsuspenseful, ladies and gentlemen. You have some fight scenes that are choreographed just fine and some with needless slow motion, until you begin to notice things such as the Dora Milaje using their nimble spears to block bullets going at a fast rate of fire, and a character ends up getting stabbed right through the stomach by a spear, and looky-loo, there's absolutely no blood on the spear. But anyway, back to what I'm saying about the editing. There are moments where the film tries to do parallels, where it focuses on a character doing something, and then it cuts back to another character that are doing the exact same thing that the first one was doing at the exact same time, but in a different place. Such as two people getting resuscitated simultaneously as the camera cuts to them every time their chest moves, in an incident that happens to two enemies. One of them getting kicked out of the boat into water, and one getting blown by an arc reactor into water. And it happens as they're going in the exact same motion as each other. It's a jarring editing technique that this film does freaking repeatedly. It's fine if you do it like once or twice, but if you do it over and over again, it becomes overindulgent and it takes you out of the movie. It especially gets worse when the editing technique is applied to Namor's backstory, as it cuts repeatedly from going to him, then going back to the backstory, to him talking about the backstory, then all the way back to the backstory, and it cuts back to this character over and over again every other 3 seconds or so, that it will take you out of the experience or become a distraction from being invested in this character or his plight. And I remember back in my review of the first film where I have criticized it for having uncanny special effects, particularly towards the end showdown of the film. And I gotta tell you, in this movie, I don't think any improvements were made. Don't get me wrong, Wakanda and Talokan's scale, fortresses, homes, and even sea life from humpback whales and orcas are simply majestic. But the CGI for the costumes, such as the shiny and fake-looking Ironheart and Black Panther suits, are buoyant, weightless, and the way that they are rendered, composited, and integrated into the movie look like a CG cutscene from 2007. It feels like you are watching a special effect in motion, rather than making the special effect itself make you believe that someone is in the suit. While slightly better than the oversaturated Phase 4 rank and file, Black Panther Wakanda Forever is not what I consider to be an improvement or an up-to-par final product. It has nothing to say in terms of its themes of politics, isolationism, or revenge bad. Its story and world building is all over the map, no pun intended. Its villain and its motivation are completely absurd, and some effects, editing, and the action sequences lack the polish and the substance. The acting is great for the most part. There are good CG elements and a few moments here and there that are really solid, and Ludwig Göransson provides a solid musical score just as well as his predecessor. But the commendable qualities cannot carry a film that is overly long, poorly written, and makes you feel indifferent than fulfilled. Wakanda Forever, more like Wakanda Nevermore. See you in Phase 5, guys. My name is Nukem, and you, my friends, have been blown away.